Before Zeus hurled his first thunderbolt, before Hera schemed from her throne, before Hades ruled the dead and Poseidon stirred the seas, there was another king of gods. His name was Kronos. To the Greeks, Kronos was not simply a titan. He was the ruler of an older, darker world, a time before the familiar Olympian order. He was a god who rose to power by cutting down his own father and who clung to his throne by devouring his own children. Kronos was both worshipped and feared, remembered as a bringer of peace during the golden age of mankind, yet also cursed as a tyrant whose paranoia knew no bounds. What makes Kronos so striking is the duality of his legacy. On one hand, his reign was said to be a paradise, an age of abundance, when the earth gave of itself without need for labor. Yet on the other hand, this same ruler was haunted by a prophecy that foretold his doom, and his response was monstrous. This is the paradox of Kronos, the bringer of plenty and the devourer of life. The liberator who freed his siblings from the cruelty of Uranus, only to become a tyrant himself. He is a figure who embodies cycles of growth and decay, of power seized and power lost, of fathers falling to their sons. This is the story of Kronos, the king of the Titans, the first usurper, and the father of the Olympians. Kronos was not born into peace, but into a family torn by fear and cruelty. He was the son of Uranus, the endless sky, and Gaia, the fertile earth. Together they had birthed a generation of children with immense power. The Titans, 12 beings who personified vast forces of nature and the building blocks of existence itself. But Uranus was not a nurturing father. He looked upon his children not with pride, but with suspicion. To him, they were rivals waiting to take what was his. His paranoia fell most harshly upon the monstrous offspring Gaia had also borne. The Cyclopes, each with a single blazing eye, and the Hecatoncheires, towering giants with 100 hands and 50 heads. Uranus found them grotesque and shameful, so he forced them deep into Gaia's womb, sealing them away in the darkness of the earth. This cruelty wounded Gaia. Every time Uranus pressed her children into the abyss, she felt the pain inside her own body. Her sorrow turned to anger, and her anger to resolve. She could no longer bear the oppression of her husband. In secret, she began to scheme. From the primal substance of the earth, Gaia forged a great sickle of unyielding adamant. It was jagged, sharp enough to slice through divine flesh, a weapon unlike any other. Then she turned to her Titan sons. One by one, she asked them to rise against Uranus. One by one, they recoiled. None dared to strike the sky, their own father, the ruler of all. But Kronos was different. He was ambitious, calculating, and far less restrained by filial loyalty. Where his brothers hesitated, he saw opportunity. With cold determination, Kronos agreed to take the sickle into his hands. He would do what the others feared. And so it was decided. Kronos, the youngest of the Titans, would become Gaia's chosen instrument of vengeance. It was a choice that would shape the destiny of gods and mortals alike. For from the moment he accepted that sickle, Kronos was bound to a cycle of rebellion, blood, and betrayal that would echo across every generation to come. Unlike the Olympians, who were often depicted in vivid, familiar forms, Zeus with his thunderbolt, Athena with her spear, or Apollo with his lyre, the Titans belonged to an older, stranger age of gods. Their images were not as fixed, and Kronos most of all resisted a single clear shape. He was remembered less for how he looked and more for what he did. In the earliest Greek art, Kronos appears as a powerful Titan wielding his signature weapon, the sickle. This sickle, forged from the very bones of the earth, became the symbol of his rebellion and the act that defined his rise. To the Greeks, the image of Kronos with the curved blade in hand was enough to capture his essence, a god who was willing to cut down even his own father to seize power. Later depictions, especially as Kronos was merged with the Roman god Saturn, softened or transformed him. Saturn was shown as an aged, bearded figure, often with the sickle or scythe in hand. It was here that the image of Kronos began to shift, no longer only a titan of harvest and cycles, but a looming figure of time itself, Father Time, who devours everything. Artists painted him as gaunt and weary, a god aged by eternity, holding an hourglass or scythe as symbols of time's relentless march. And yet, perhaps the most haunting vision of Kronos comes from art much later, long after the age of myth had passed. In the 19th century, the Spanish painter Francisco Goya produced his infamous work, Saturn Devouring His Son. In it, Kronos, or Saturn, is a wild, monstrous figure, his eyes bulging with madness, his mouth tearing into the flesh of his child. His body is twisted, gaunt, and terrifying, nothing like the regal figure of the Golden Age. It is the very embodiment of fear and paranoia captured in a single gruesome moment. This duality of his appearance reflects the duality of his legacy. In some traditions, he was seen as a noble ruler of a time of plenty, a god of harvest who brought abundance. In others, he was remembered as the ultimate tyrant, an old devourer driven mad by his own fear. Whether as Titan, Saturn, or Father Time, Kronos' image always circles back to the same truth: power cannot last forever. Kronos' story is inseparable from the family that surrounded him. He was born into a vast and tangled lineage, one of the youngest sons of Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth. Together, his parents produced not only the Titans, but also stranger, more monstrous offspring, the one-eyed Cyclopes and the hundred-handed Hecatoncheires. This sprawling brood became the first true dynasty of divine beings, and Kronos stood at its center. Among the children of Uranus and Gaia, Kronos was not alone. He was one of 12 Titans, each embodying vast and primordial forces that shaped the cosmos. Oceanus, the endless river that encircled the world, remained apart from conflict and was later remembered as the only Titan not cast into Tartarus. Hyperion, radiant lord of the heavenly light, was said to bring the brilliance of the sun, while his consort Theia embodied sight and divine brilliance. Together, they would give rise to Helios, Selene, and Eos, the sun, moon, and dawn. Coos, axis of knowledge and inquiry, and Phoebe, titaness of prophecy and radiant intellect, stood as guardians of thought and foresight. Their bloodline gave birth to Leto, the mother of Apollo and Artemis. Crius, associated with constellations and heavenly order, often appeared on the margins of the myths, though he carried with him the force of the stars themselves. Themis, titaness of divine law and justice, represented balance and order, while Mnemosyne, titaness of memory, would give rise to the Muses, the very voices of inspiration and song. Tethys, titaness of fresh waters, ruled over the nourishing rivers and streams, and through her union with Oceanus, countless rivers and nymphs were born. Iapetus, titan of mortality and craftsmanship, was most often remembered through his children. Prometheus, the bringer of fire. Epimetheus, the fool who accepted Pandora. Atlas, who would bear the weight of the heavens, and Menoetius, struck down for his hubris. Rhea, sister and consort of Kronos, was the queen of the Titans, a motherly figure whose grief would one day reshape the fate of gods and men. These 12 Titans each carried power and legacy, but none rivaled the ambition of Kronos. Where others hesitated to defy Uranus, he alone stepped forward, sickle in hand, ready to overturn the order of the cosmos. But most important among his siblings was Rhea. Together, they produced the first generation of Olympian gods. This union, meant to secure Kronos' dynasty, became the very thing that sealed his downfall. Through Rhea, the prophecy of his children rising against him was fulfilled. Their relationship is one of the most tragic in myth. A queen forced to watch her children swallowed one by one, and ultimately the one who betrayed her husband to save the last of them. His family ties extended further through his children, who embodied the core forces of the Greek cosmos. Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Hera, goddess of marriage and queenship. Hades, ruler of the underworld. Poseidon, god of the sea. And Zeus, lord of the sky. These children were not just offspring, They were the very structure of the new divine order that would overthrow him. Beyond the Olympians, Kronos' family tree spread into other myths. Through his brothers and sisters, he was connected to powerful figures who shaped both mortal and divine destiny. From Prometheus, the bringer of fire, to Atlas, condemned to bear the sky. In this way, Kronos was not simply one titan among many. He was the nexus of a family whose conflicts defined the entire arc of Greek mythology. But family, for Kronos, was never a source of comfort. It was a curse. His father had feared him. His siblings had followed him only reluctantly. His consort betrayed him, and his children became the very weapons of his undoing. For Kronos, family was always bound to fate, and fate always ended in rebellion.